Welcome to the Dissertation Crash Course. What we have for you in this video is an overview of all the major chapters in the dissertation, as well as examples and tips and tricks to make this process as easy as possible and as user-friendly as possible. So let's get started. So we have a dissertation cheat sheet that we really love because it boils the entire process down onto a half sheet of paper. So let's take a look. Chapter 1 of the dissertation is the introduction chapter. It's a narrative piece where you frame and establish the problem and the purpose of your study, and then reveal your research questions. This is an important chapter to write because we trace how and why we got to the topic, as well as why we need to bother studying such a thing, why we need to pursue such a research question, and try to solve this problem with our research. The next thing we do, we move to the lit review. This lit review is sort of a giant research paper where we collect and synthesize all the major researchers in the field that relate to our topic, our area of study. So it's this sort of robust canvassing of what has been done, what's been said so far regarding our topic. And the more deeply we read, the more trustworthy we can be when we lean into our own research and dive in as well. So it's basically a research paper, so it's a little bit different style of writing. Notice that each chapter has a different writing style. Chapter 3 is the methodology. This is sort of the rules to your game. How exactly are you going to play this game? So you're going to describe to us and explain to us the rules to your game and justify why they need to be played that way. So for example, you're doing a case study, you're doing a focus group, you're doing a mixed methods approach. All those things will be detailed in this chapter, and you'll be explaining how and why you'll be gathering data, analyzing it, and from whom. In the next chapter, chapter 4, you're moving to a descriptive writing, an analytic writing, where you're describing and analyzing what you found after you played your game. So this is very much focused on just the data, what you gathered, what you can pull from that data set. And then the final chapter is the conclusion discussion chapter, where we can actually start persuading people to see the grander implications of the findings from chapter 4, where we can design ways to move forward, argue for ways to make things better, and establish an action plan on how to take this research to another level or for a future recommendation. But here we also want to acknowledge any limitations with our study as well. And then you cap it all off with references and an appendix at the end. That is the macro view of the dissertation. What I'll do for you next is give you just a little cruise through each chapter, tips and tricks to get you kind of started. So chapter 1, introduction chapter. We focus on the problem and purpose in this chapter, and I'll give you an example of each right now. So a problem statement, for an example, assessment literacy remains one of the most untaught or ignored facets of teacher training. Writing assessment specifically is an even more marginalized dimension of assessment literacy. Without the proper training, teachers in all disciplines may struggle with properly assessing student writing and providing timely and accurate formative feedback. So there's a problem that we have to solve with this research. And the purpose of this research then is what follows, this statement. The purpose of this study is to investigate the writing assessment culture of an entire school in hopes to uncover writing assessment beliefs and practices and provide training experiences aimed to impact those beliefs and practices in order to create a shared vision of writing assessment. Now, once you can get your problem and purpose statements tacked down, we can then reveal our research questions in chapter 1. So for this very same problem and purpose, we will surround those statements with the research questions. So what are the writing assessment beliefs and practices at this school? And then how will a multi-layered professional development series impact the writing assessment beliefs and practices at this school? So that is the key ingredients you'll find in chapter 1, and we will narrate those inside that first chapter. We have a sort of a warning here from Mitch Resnick out of MIT. He wrote this great book, Lifelong Kindergarten, and he says that he gives this warning to his own dissertation students and how they pursue this project. And his quote is really great here. He says, "When my graduate students at MIT look for topics for their dissertation, I tell them that it's essential for them to find topics they're passionate about. I explain that researching and writing a dissertation is very hard work with many obstacles and frustrations along the way, there will be times when they feel like giving up. The only way they can persist and persevere through all the challenges is if they work on topics that they're truly passionate about. And that's what we really want to guide you to, is getting passionate, topics that you're really passionate about, things that you just cannot quit reading about because you're so enthralled by it. And so you see examples of how to kind of get the DNA of chapter 1 started, but how do you get a research question? You must become the master of choosing. And this is a great quote from Keith Sawyer from his book Zigzag. He says, to be creative, you have to generate boatloads of ideas. To be creative successfully, you have to let most of them sink because the real genius lies in picking good ideas. So our advice to you is to write down your top 3 to 5 dissertation research questions and share them with a peer. And that'll help you talk out these different ideas. And then you can also share these with your chair once you get one, and they can help you navigate the questions and refine them. So there's our chapter 1 crash course. And you'll see that once you get it written, there's an example of how it looks when it gets all prettied up at the end. So let's dive into chapter 2, the lit review, the big research paper we need to write. Essentially, we're asking this question: who will you bring to the fight? So we want to armor ourselves with other researchers and their big ideas and their accomplishments and accolades. So I want you to imagine that you are Patrick Swayze. If you see The Outsiders, you can see that this is from that film there, of course. And we want to surround ourselves with people that we trust. DeFord Acre, we've got Wagner and Dweck, and hanging out back there is Marzano. We're bringing him to the fight as well. So whose shoulders are we standing on? Who can we bring with us to make this research the best that it could be? I want you to think about that as you start doing your reading for your lit review. So we remind ourselves what the lit review does. It's this sort of collection and synthesis. And we ask, well, gosh, how much reading should I do? You should read until the sources start talking. And they're going to talk in similar ways and complementary ways, but also in contradictory ways. And we want to make sure we're navigating all those things as we write chapter 2. So we have a research question up at the top. And for this research question, we will actually help you as your chair and your committees build a structure sort of like this. On the left-hand side are all of the sort of miniature essays that will then stack together to become your literature review. So on the left-hand side are major topics or themes that need to be explored, and on the right-hand side are all of the books or authors and topics that need to go with it. And so if we were to write a 5-page paper on each of these, we would have a 35 to 40-page lit review, 5 to 6 pages each. And that's how you get that sort of robustness that you want when you do your depth of reading for chapter 2. And then we identify the keystone reads, meaning that we have to read these things cover to cover because they're so important to our research. So we'll help you with those things too. Now, where do you get started? So we go to the Joule search on the MTSU website. And right there in that search bar, we start to key in our keywords for our research. And once you do that, it'll take you to this screen here. And for example, we've got creativity and education multi-layered into the search boxes. And this is where we get started to find out, well, gosh, what should I read? Where should I start? This is a great place to start. And so on the bottom left, you can see once you key your words in, you can then click scholarly, peer review, and then online full text. This is going to winnow down the research results to just the things that they can provide at MTSU with full access. You can see we've got a lot of results here. But we can do even better. We can actually triple layer the search, keep playing with your search terms, keep using the box checked on the left, and then you can see that our search result number has winnowed down quite a bit, even though it's still quite large. But what you can do after you've started to narrow down is start downloading directly PDFs to start banking for your research. So if you click there, the file pops right up and you can start saving, you can start reading and start writing that lit review. And then of course it looks like this once you get it rolling. And each mini essay has its own section. So our next chapter, methodology. This is where we explain the rules to our game. So I'll just give you some samples of how this might look. So the research questions, as you know, from our previous example are here. And then we want to take a look at the research design. This will be presented in chapter 3 in various ways. This one happens to have 3 components: looking for triangulation, And then we have a methodology timeline, which is a key feature of Chapter 3. We also have details of how the research will be conducted. So you can see some examples here of how this design was laid out, the goals of round 1, and then of course the goals for round 2. Not every study has a round 1 or 2, but this one does. So as these things are itemized this way, your chair will help you write and sort of explain these in detail that'll look like this. You have an introduction, but then you'll also reveal any scales you're using, questions from surveys. Once we fully disclose those things, we're ready to move on to our next chapter, which is the results chapter. Here we describe all the things we got out of the game we played. And that looks similarly like the previous chapter. Here we're analyzing data, but also sort of storifying it as well. We're wrapping the charts and data and images with text to explain what the numbers mean, the gravity of such numbers. As you can see, the different charts are wrapped with text. And then finally, the last chapter, we decide to make an argument and make a case for what this all means, which we should do next. So for example, this is what it would look like in writing. And you're actually towing data from the previous chapter to chapter 5 to make your case. Bringing that data back is essential for making your case for how to move forward and what it all means. And often what you'll find is that people will create what's called a conceptual model. This is what's sort of born out of the entire study. It's that sort of culminating event and what we should do furthermore when we describe that in chapter 5 as plans to move forward, ways we can move forward to continue this process to make it even better. And we also want to acknowledge our limitations to our studies here too, because we know we haven't fixed everything. We've just done this one small nudge toward a new piece of data, a new project that may have had an impact. So we have this sort of crash course in our dissertation cheat sheet. You'll get a copy of this. It's all boiled down to one half sheet of paper. And that right there we're really, really proud of and have had a lot of positive feedback from students. It helps them stay on track, helps them navigate, and it's a quick reference guide. However, we have something even better too. Once you get ready, Dr. K has designed a dissertation deep dive checklist for every single chapter. But we're not quite ready for that, but we want you to know that it's there, and you can start moving with your chair through each of these. Notice that even a chapter by chapter checklist helps us as well. So you'll get these along the way. What's also great though is that we have a dissertation chair guide that helps the chairs understand that these cheat sheets are all there too for them to use to guide their own students through this process as well. So everything is designed for the user friendliness for your success and your benefit. And one day soon, you'll see an announcement come out with your name on it. It'll go to the entire MTSU faculty and community, and it'll be a celebratory moment where you get to defend your dissertation because you've made it. It is a long and zigzag process, but we'll be there every step of the way. And we can't wait to hear about your idea and help you get moving. Thank you.